Subscribe to LearnCap and hit the bell icon to get notified.
A very good morning to all of you, my dear soldiers. A very, very good morning. My dear soldiers, today we are going to talk about the auditing CA Intermediate RTP 2021. And there are several questions which are there which we will discuss. Now, this particular video will be relevant for both, say, old syllabus as well as the new syllabus students. For both the category of students, it will be relevant in nature. Okay. So, first of all, I would like to take up the questions, because what happens is that there are common questions for both CA old syllabus as well as new syllabus. There are common questions are there. Almost you can say soldiers that almost 90 to 95% of questions are similar. Here and there 5% of questions are varying compared to old and new syllabus. That's the thing here. So this video RTP 2021 both for old and the new syllabus. So what we are going to do here is that first of all we will take up questions, common questions which are repeated in both the RTPs, both for old and new. And there will be common questions which are not repeated. For example, the questions have come for old syllabus, but still it is relevant for new syllabus. And there are some questions which are relevant for only which has come in new syllabus but not repeated in old syllabus, but they are still relevant for old syllabus. So what we will do is that we will cover all those questions. Almost 90% of the questions are same. Then few questions are appearing here and there either in old and new, which is again relevant for both old and new. Then there are questions which are relevant only for old syllabus that I will take up, and then questions which are relevant only for the new syllabus I will take up. That is what the approach we will adopt. Any point of time you have a doubt, you have a confusion, please ask me without any kind of hesitation. Okay, that's the thing here. Now, straight away, let me start with first of all, the descriptive questions. Let me straight away start with the descriptive questions. So here you have questions which is repeated for both old and new syllabus, and sometimes which is not repeated also. That's the thing. Means it has come in old but not shown in the new RTP, or it has come in new RTP but not shown in the old RTP, but still it stands to be relevant. Okay, still it is relevant. So now let me take up the first question, soldiers. Let us start off our discussion. The first question is that knowledge of human behavior is indeed very essential for an auditor so as to effectively discharge his duties. Explain. So knowledge of human behavior is indeed very essential for an auditor so as to effectively discharge his duties. Explain. Now this is coming from the first chapter for both old and new syllabus, and see it is talking about the relationship of auditing and behavioral science. Behavioral science. So he has not asked you a direct question that what is the relationship between auditing and behavioral science. He has not asked that question, my dear soldiers. What he has asked, that knowledge of human behavior is indeed very essential for an auditor to effectively discharge his duties. That's the thing here. So now they are talking about the relationship between your answer should be what? Auditing and the behavioral science, coming from the chapter number 1. See, there you have various subjects like auditing and law, auditing and financial management, auditing and accounting, auditing and mathematics and statistics, auditing and financial management, auditing and economics, auditing and data processing, and one thing which you have is auditing and behavioral science. That's a thing here. So when you're writing the answer, first of all, you have to highlight that audit involves what? Come on. Verification of assertion. First of all, in auditing, we will validate the assertions. Now, what are assertions? Assertions are the statement made by management on the financial statement. I repeat, assertions are the statement made by management in relation to the financial statement. That is what is assertion. For example, existence, rights and obligation, these are all assertion. So auditor, what he will do, first of all, you understand that he will verify the assertions which is made by the management on the financial statement. That's a thing here. So, and also auditor job is what come on to give opinion. The main aspect of auditing is what come on that I have to express opinion on the financial statement. That is the main aspect related to auditing. That's a thing here. Okay. So now what happens is that the auditor, basically what happens is that he should have a good knowledge of what you can say of human behavior. That's the thing here, because he will be interacting with various people. So what happens is that good good knowledge of human behavior. It is very important that it should have a good knowledge of human behavior. That is, and behavioral science deals with what come on. It deals with the human behavior. It talks about what is a human behavior. It deals with that actually. So behavioral science, it deals with what come on. What is a human behavior and all about that. That's a thing here, because you'll be interacting with people, and that's a thing here. Now, when you're writing, you should say auditing and behavioral science are closely related. You have to highlight that they are closely related. Actually, that's the thing. So, auditing deals with financial figures. So, auditing basically deals with what come on financial figures. Actually, that's a thing here. And basically, you have to talk about. Whereas when we talk about internal audit or management audit, they deal with what come on more with human beings than what you can say financial figures. That's a thing here. So there are different types of audit. You have internal audit, management audit. See, in internal audit, management audit, we observe whether the employee is working efficiently or not. So we observe their conduct, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. Okay. Now, another thing you have to highlight is that if the internal control has to function properly in an organization, it is very important that people who are responsible for those controls are competent, knowledgeable, and honest in nature. So, are they competent, knowledgeable, and honest in nature? That's the thing here. So, it's because internal control means what? It is a policy and procedure of the organization. I repeat, it is a policy and procedure of organization. So, it is very important that people, because people will operate this control, the employees will operate the control. See, for example, a transaction to be authorized, there will be a person who will be authorizing the transaction. That personnel, that human being should be honest. Is he competent? Is he honest? Those things you should be looking into actually here. So that is why what do we say, my dear soldiers, is that a knowledge of human behavior is very much required here. You should have a very good knowledge of what you can say the human behavior. It is a must and a mandatory thing actually here. So a very good knowledge of human behavior is must and mandatory, and that is what is required. So that is why this relationship between auditing and behavioral science are closely related. That's the thing here. Okay. So indirectly he has asked the question. He has not asked the question auditing and behavioral science. He has said that knowledge of human behavior, that subject or knowledge of human behavior is nothing but the behavioral science actually. Okay. I hope you are clear, my dear soldiers. I hope you are understanding. Anything, any query you are having, you ask me without any hesitation. Don't hesitate a bit actually when you ask any query. Anything I'm scribbling on the board, you can scribble it actually, no problem. Now next one. Second question. Principal aspect to be considered by auditor while conducting the audit of financial statement of the accounts. So whenever an auditor is doing audit, what are the principal aspects to be considered by the auditor? What principal aspects an auditor should consider actually? That's the thing here. So an auditor, see, this is a question which has been repeated several times in the examination, that what are the aspects auditor will consider while doing the audit. See, auditor is more concerned about what? It's an independent examination of financial information with an objective to express an opinion on such financial information. So, whenever I talk about audit, audit is all about examining the balance sheet, the P&L, the cash flow statement. He is asking you a simple question: what are you going to cover in audit? So, the meaning what you should tell in your mind, in the flower bracket I will write down. Whatever I write in the flower bracket, it is only for your understanding. What are you covering in audit? What are you covering in audit? That is what you are highlighting it, my dear soldiers here. So, what are the things you are going to cover in audit? And that is what you are going to highlight it actually. That's the thing here. So, now in such case actually what happens is that, so when we say what are you going to cover in the audit of financial statement, that's the thing here. So, what are the scenarios you're going to cover as far as the audit of financial statement is concerned? That's the thing here. Here what happens is that, first of all, we talk about actually here, yes, we talk about the evaluating the internal control of the organization. Okay, so we evaluate that whether the internal controls are functioning properly or not. That is the first and the foremost thing actually here. Okay, so we as an auditor, what do we do is that our job as an auditor is what, come on, is to evaluate the internal control of the organization. That is the first thing we have to highlight it actually. Then we also need to understand the accounting system. So what is the accounting system of the organization actually here? So even that is also a thing to be understood, my dear soldiers. The accounting system also has to be understood very clearly. That's a thing here. Okay, so these are the things actually to be understood. That's a thing here. So, the question will flow in this manner, that what are the aspects you are going to cover in the audit? What are you going to cover in the audit? First of all, you will evaluate the internal controls of the organization. That is the first thing actually you will highlight. The second thing what you will highlight is that you will also understand the accounting system and the internal control. So you have to highlight about the accounting system and the internal control while writing the answer. You will also decide the what you can say, whether the capital item are treated as revenue. That is to be checked, whether capital item are treated as revenue. Then whether the transaction is genuine in nature. As an auditor, you will check that. You will understand the accounting system, internal control, capital item treated as revenue, and you need to check that whether the transactions are genuine in nature. Are they genuine in nature? That you have to check actually here. And whether the profit and loss account show the operating results of the entity. So whether the P&L is showing the operating results of the entity, that you will check, that you are going to highlight it. And after this profit and loss account, whether the assets are properly valued. Are they properly valued? Are they properly disclosed? Do they exist? This you have to check about the assets. So is it properly valued? Is it properly disclosed, and do they really exist? Similarly, the existence and valuation of liability, even, that also to be checked actually. That's the thing here. Okay, and compliance of laws and regulation to be checked by the auditor. That's the thing here. Okay, so and finally, auditor will also check that whether the financial statement are prepared as per the books of account. Whether the financial statements are prepared as per books of account, even that is also a part to be checked. That's the thing here. So first and the foremost thing, my dear soldiers, is what, come on, you need to understand and evaluate the accounting system and internal control. You need to check whether capital expenditure is treated as revenue, and whether the transaction is genuine in nature, whether P&L shows the operating results of the entity, whether the assets are properly valued, disclosed, Okay, that's the thing here. And do they exist, whether the asset exists, then existence and valuation of liability, then also what we can say is that compliance of all the laws and regulation, and whether the financial statements are prepared as per the books of account. That's the thing here. As I discuss, you can keep scribbling in your notebook, that will be better, so you can keep writing and keep scribbling in the book. Actually, that's the thing here. Now next question. Next question. This question was asked in the new syllabus, but still it is also relevant for the old syllabus. Okay. What is this question? They may ask for old syllabus also. So that's the thing here. Now, the firm should establish policies and procedures designed to provide it with reasonable assurance that sufficient personnel with capabilities, competence, commitment to ethical principles. Discuss the personnel issues addressed by such policies and procedure. Also, explain how the addressing the personnel issues would empower the firm. Personnel issues means people. Personnel means people. And personnel means the audit engagement team. Audit engagement team. That's the thing here. So, it is also nothing but what, come on, my dear soldiers, the audit engagement team. That's the thing here. So, here he is talking about that how the article assistant are very much required, very much important, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. So, how article assistants are important for, like say, audit engagement team is nothing but the articles. Okay, they are nothing but the articles who are working in the organization. They are telling that the article, the sufficient personnel with capabilities, competence, and commitment. Article should be capable, they should be competent, and they should be committed to ethical principle. Ethical principle means they should maintain integrity, confidentiality, objectivity. So this question has been asked from SA 220. Okay, SA 220, quality control in the audit of financial statement. This comes in the chapter 1 of ICI material for new syllabus, and it is given in SA 220 standards and auditing, equally relevant for the old syllabus also. Okay, that's the thing here. So now what they are trying to highlight is that I have to see, since we are talking about SA 220, which deals with quality control, one of the most important pillar in case of quality control, my dear soldiers, are the, what you can say here, the article assistant. Now, they don't use the word article assistant in the book. They call them as personnel, or they call them as audit engagement team. They call them as personnel, or they may call them as audit engagement team. That's the thing here. Okay. I request you also keep the RTP open actually here, so that you can see the question and you can also start marking, start understanding what the question is asking. That's the thing here. So they say that, see, even these people are required to ensure a high level of quality. High level of quality. For that purpose, I require the people. That's the thing here. Now, the such policies, basically what happens is that what they have to check, they have to ensure that first of all, whether the engagement, you have to write down engagement. Engagement means work, audit engagement is performed. Engagement is performed as per PSLR. PSLR means professional standards, legal and regulatory requirement. Engagement is performed as per PSLR. When I say PSLR, it is nothing but professional standards and legal and the regulatory requirement. That is what we understand by the PSLR, and that's the thing here. Okay. So I repeat again one more time. The engagement means the work, and the work is performed as per what, come on, my dear soldiers, the PSLR. And PSLR is nothing but, I repeat again one more time, professional standards, legal and what you can say regulatory requirement. That is a first and the foremost thing actually which we need to understand here. Sir, professional standards means what? Means it is nothing but standards on auditing. Whether the article have done the work as per standards on auditing, have they done the work as per the legal and regulatory requirement, which is nothing but the Companies Act, that you have to highlight. And audit report is issued as per circumstances. Audit report is issued as per the circumstances. That's the thing here. Now, what will happen? How do you address these issues which is related to personnel? So, what are the parameters you will consider? Okay, you are looking at personnel. What are the things you will look at actually here? So, here you have to see the recruitment of the personnel. Right person is selected for the right job, recruitment. You will look into performance evaluation. You will look into the competence. Are they competent? Are they capable? Are they capable? So people who are working in the firm are high quality people. That's the thing here. So performance evaluation, recruitment, competent, my dear soldiers, capable. That's the thing here. And then also what you can say, career development, and that's the thing here. Career development and promotion. So you have what you can say, my dear soldiers, career development and promotion. And next one, you have the compensation. So you have certain things. You have compensation, you have career development, you have promotion, you have recruitment, you have performance evaluation. Okay. And you look into competence, you look into the capability of a person actually here. So see, it is very, very important for the well-being of the people working in an audit firm. If well-being comes in what way? Are you paying them very good salary? Are you giving them proper promotion? Are you evaluating their performance like that? So are they capable? You will look into all these things whenever you look into the firm, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. So all these scenarios are required, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. Okay. So now, my dear soldier, this is the first and the foremost thing you need to understand here actually, that we are talking about people who are working in the organization, and we are looking into their quality. How do you address those issues? Are they having a career development in the firm, in the CA firm? And that's the thing here. So it is very important. Yes, see, ultimately all these people who are working in the organization, they should follow ethical requirement. Are they ethical in nature? That is what it is actually. Okay. So this is the thing you have to answer in the examination. Quote essay 220, quality control in the audit of financial statement. That's the thing here. So any doubts, my dear soldiers, any confusion? Everybody is clear. If you're clear, come on, put C. Hit the chat box. Actually here. Yes. So any doubts you're having, you ask me without hesitation. Please open the revision test paper, actually RTP, and also start marking the answers actually in the RTP. You also have the question in your hand. That's the thing. As we are discussing the question, that's the thing. Now, next one. Let us move forward actually here. Next thing, there are practical and legal limitation on auditors' ability to obtain audit evidence. Explain with giving examples. That's the thing here. So there are what you can say practical and what you can say the legal limitations are there. Practical and legal limitations while obtaining the audit evidence. Basically, this is talking about the inherent limitations of audit. That's the thing here. Actually, what has happened nowadays, examiners are not asking direct question. What are the inherent limitations of audit? Here, they are just picking up a sentence. A sentence has been picked up, and from that particular sentence, they are asking you a query and a question. From that particular sentence, it is given. That's a thing here. Okay. So now, my dear soldiers, when this kind of question comes, that is why you have to be thorough with the concepts, actually thorough with the concepts, so that you can answer it properly. Okay. First of all, you understand that this question comes from essay 200. the overall objective of the independent auditor. That's the thing here. So now it comes from SA 200, the mother standards on auditing. See, standards on auditing, they will teach us how to conduct an independent audit. Okay. Now, and it comes from the topic of inherent limitations of audit. Inherent limitations of audit. Inherent limitations of audit in understanding bracket means sometimes the audit fails. That is what you have to understand. Sometimes the audit fails, sometimes the audit is not successful, and that is what you have to understand by the inherent limitations of audit. That's the thing here. Okay. So SA 200 talks about the, what you can say, soldiers, the inherent limitations of audit, that it deals with that particular aspect actually. So it talks about what are the different inherent limitations of audit. Let us talk about that. That's the thing here. So now in this case means what? Sometimes audit fails means what? The audit risk cannot be reduced to zero. You can scribble it. You can scribble along with me. Audit risk cannot be reduced to zero. You can't reduce the audit risk. All material misstatement cannot be detected. You can't detect all material misstatement. There are some reasons for that. And one of the reason is what, come on, is the practical and legal limitation on the auditor's ability to obtain audit evidence. That's the thing here. Now, so you have to write down this sentence as it is. So the question also contains the answer. So one line you have to highlight that what is the reason actually, why there are limitations. You have to highlight that. So all material misstatement cannot be detected. Now reason is, first of all, it could be, say, nature of financial reporting, that is related to accounting. Nature of audit procedures, this is more related to audit procedures. Okay, so write down nature of audit procedures. Here you have to give reasons actually. First of all, my dear soldiers, the management, basically what happens is that the management may not provide the complete information or SAI. SAI means sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So management may not provide complete information. That is nothing but SAI, complete information. That is one reason why it may not be successful. You may not get complete information which is used in preparation of financial statement. Second reason, what happens is that fraud. There may be a fraud. Because of fraud, see, fraud involves, you have to write down, sophisticated and carefully organized scheme to conceal them. So you have to highlight that. And sometimes what happens, the documents can be falsified. So there may be a situation where documents also can be falsified. What will you do? That's the thing here. Now, simple example, this color Xerox industry is creating a problem for us. Which is the original document, which is a duplicate document? It is difficult to detect. It is not easy to detect. It is challenging to detect actually. That's the thing here. Which is original document, which is duplicate document? We are not able to find out, my dear soldiers. That's becoming a challenge altogether, and that's the thing here. Okay, that's the thing here. So management may not provide what, come on, the complete information. That's the thing here. Next one, my dear soldiers, next scenario is what, come on. There may be a situation of fraud. There may be a scenario, because fraud involves what? You have to use this word, sophisticated. So fraud involves what, come on? Sophisticated and carefully organized schemes to conceal it. So there is a concealment, and that is why there are limitations actually here. And audit, my dear soldiers, is not a official investigation. It is not an official investigation, because investigation there will be some specific power to search. Audit does not have that power to search. That is why these are the three limitations. Because of these three limitations, parameter related to audit procedures, we are not able to obtain the audit evidence. So you have to highlight three things. One, the management is not providing the complete information to us, which is used in preparation and presentation of financial statement. Second one, fraud involves sophisticated and carefully organized scheme to conceal it. So you are not able to know. There may be a false documentation also. And third one, the third reason could be related to, say, because audit is not investigation, so it is not a official investigation. So what happens is that you are not able to conceal it, and there may be some concealment may also may be happening, and that's the thing here. Okay, so all these factors you have to write down when you're writing the answers. Okay, that's the thing here. Fine, now let us move forward actually here with the next set of questions. Okay, uh, let me move forward. Next thing, it is coming from the chapter 2, which is talking about audit strategy, audit planning, and audit program. Another important chapter for you. They may ask you a question from this. Okay, so what are they asking? Again, there are common question for both old and new syllabus. That's it. Question may be jumbled. It may be up and down. Otherwise, same question is asked for both old and new syllabus. Okay. So now what is the question 1A? Now the nature, timing and extent of direction and supervision of engagement team members and the review of their work vary on many factors. That's the thing here. So what happens at engagement team members means articles. He's telling that the nature, extent, timing of direction, supervision and review, it will vary and it depends upon several factors. That's the thing here. See, ultimately the audit will be carried out by the article assistant. And article assistants are known as audit engagement team or engagement team members. Okay, so that is what it is actually here. So it is that it will contain articles of the CA firm and the employee of the CA firm. Okay, even the partner of the CA firm can also be included in the engagement team members. Engagement team members, engagement means work. Okay, now what are the factors? What are the factors which we use in directing, supervising and reviewing the work of the engagement team? So I remember like this: NET, nature, extent, timing of DSR, direction, supervision, review of engagement team members. That's it. So this heading, subheading you should remember: NET, nature, extent, timing of direction, supervision, review of the engagement team member. That's the thing here. So what are the factors? He's asking about the factors. This is more or like a direct question they have asked actually. So factors. Now you have to see the size and complexity of entity. So look into the size and complexity of the entity. You look into the areas of audit actually here. What are the areas of audit? That's the thing here. You also look into ROM. ROM means risk of material misstatement. That's the thing here. Risk of material misstatement, and that's the thing here. So for example, what happens is that suppose say there is a increase in ROM. ROM, risk of material misstatement, another meaning for it is what? Come on, problem. If there are more problem, what will happen, my dear soldiers? Tell me whether the direction, supervision, review will increase or decrease. Come on. If increase means hit I. If decrease means put D. Come on, hit the chat box. Will it increase or decrease? It will increase. Aishwarya says it will increase. Chandrika says, Sri Lakshmi says, Anand says it will increase. Subramanyam says it will increase. Yes. So what will happen is that if it will get into an increase, actually, that's a thing here. You're right. Absolutely correct. So ROM is another name for problem, and this will, what you can say, it will result in increase of the DSR. So there will be an increase in the DSR. DSR will increase automatically for ETM, for engagement team members, and that's a thing here. So what will happen is that the DSR will definitely, it will increase it, and that's the thing actually. That is a scenario you need to understand actually. That's the thing here. So size and complexity of the entity, areas of audit, that's the thing here, and risk of material misstatement, that's the thing here. Also, you will look into the competence and capability of individual team members. So you will look into the competence and capability of the engagement team members, and that's a thing here. Now, what happens is that you look into what come on the competence and the capability of the engagement team members, which is nothing but the articles. It is nothing but the articles. That's the thing here. So each individual team member, engagement team member, you will see that. See, for example, the area is very, very easy. If the area is very, very easy, area of an audit, say sales, purchase, it's very easy. You will give that work to an experienced article or an inexperienced article. To whom you will give? Come on. E, experience, IE, inexperienced article. If the area is very easy, easy to perform, easy to do audit, to whom you will give? Will you give the work to experienced article or inexperienced article? Come on, I'm asking you guys. Hit the chat box. E or IE. So Anand, Chandrika, Sri Lakshmi, Sri Ram, Subramanyam, Aishwarya, Tejaswari, they all say inexperienced article. Very good, very good. That is what he's asking. What are the factors? So to extend, I have to give DSR, direction, supervision, review to my articles. I need to look into the size and complexity of entity. I need to look into areas of audit. I need to look into ROM. ROM means risk of material misstatement, which is nothing but problem, and competence and capability of each individual team member. Okay, that's a thing here. Now let us move forward. Next thing what they are asking is that planning an audit involves establishing overall audit strategy for the engagement and the development of the plan. Adequate planning benefits the audit of financial statement in several ways. Explain clearly those ways actually. So adequate planning benefits the audit of financial statement. This is a basic question they have asked. They have asked the question that what are the benefits of planning? This is the question actually here. So you have to be very careful. What are the benefits of planning? The question is like this, that what are the benefits of planning? What benefits you get when you plan the audit of financial statement? That's the thing here. Okay. So planning, what they say, first you should establish overall audit strategy. Overall audit strategy, basically it will set the scope, timing and direction of audit. Remember that. And development of detailed plan. Development of overall audit strategy means they set the scope, timing and direction of audit. Scope means what to check, when to check, timing is when to check, direction is how to check. Should I start from journal entry to balance sheet, or should I start from balance sheet to journal entry? That is what is the direction. Okay. And overall audit strategy, it leads to the development of audit plan. So overall audit strategy, difference between overall audit strategy and audit plan is that overall audit strategy is very, very brief in nature, whereas audit planning is very detailed in nature. That is the difference. So if I want to develop a plan, I require to establish the overall audit strategy. Overall audit strategy, three things: scope, timing and direction. What to check, when to check, how to check. Okay. Now, what are the benefits of the planning? After that, he's asking the question. So, what are the benefits, my dear soldiers? First of all, helps auditor to devote appropriate attention. Helps auditor to devote appropriate attention to important areas of audit. So what are the important areas for audit? It will help the auditor to what you can say, appropriate attention to important areas for audit. That's the thing here. Then identify the potential problems. So what are the potential problems in a company? On a timely basis, it will help you to highlight actually here. Also, organize the audit in a effective and efficient manner. Whatever audit, don't just sit there, keep scribbling something. At least you will write whatever I dictate, even if it is okay, but at least keywords you write down and keep it. So organize the audit in a effective and efficient manner. That's the thing here. So organize the audit in a effective and efficient manner. That's the thing here. So, first of all, helps the auditor to devote appropriate attention to important areas of audit, identify the potential problem, organize the audit in a what you can say in a effective and efficient manner. That's the thing here. Then also selection of engagement team members. So they can go ahead and select an engagement team member based on competence and capability, because ultimately the quality of audit depends upon that. That's the thing here. So I repeat again, selection of engagement team member basically based on what come on the competence and the capability, and that's the thing here. So what happens, soldiers, actually here is that you need to select the engagement team member based on the competence and the capability, and that's the thing here. And next one, my dear soldiers, facilitating the direction, supervision and review of the engagement team members, to direct them, to supervise them, to review their work. DSR, just now you learnt about factors which you consider for DSR of engagement team member. Okay, so you consider the size and complexity of the entity, areas of audit, ROM, competence, capability of individual team member. Here it is also helping you to facilitate what? Facilitating the direction, supervision and review of the engagement team member. Even for that purpose also you will be helped and assisted. That's the thing here. And also coordination, it helps in coordination. That's the thing here. So there is a coordination of work between other auditor, expert, internal auditor. So there may be auditor of some component branches, so that it will help in coordinating with them actually. So that way it will be very much useful. That's the thing here. So these are the what you can say benefits of the planning. It's a very simple question they have asked actually, and that way we should be able to answer the question actually. So it's a very simple question they have highlighted from the examination point of view. Okay, that's the thing here. Now let us move forward actually. Let's go ahead actually. The next question which comes to, so but whenever question is asked on planning, you can give reference to essay 300, planning the audit of financial statement. That's the thing here. Now next question, let us go to the next question. What it says that what could be considered as material for all situations cannot be defined precisely. An amount or transaction material in one situation may not be material in the other situation. So again they have picked out a question where they have given a paragraph and they are asking you to think. That is the beauty of this question, that what is material. Material here means important. Material is nothing but it is important. That's the thing here. Okay, so what he is telling, that what can be material, whatever amount and transaction is material in one situation, it may not be material in the other situation actually. That's the thing here. So now how do you deal with this, or what are the factors you should consider actually here as far as the materiality is concerned, is what they are trying to highlight it actually. That's the thing here. Now here in this question, my dear soldiers, first of all give reference to essay 320. Moment question is asked on materiality, essay 320, materiality in planning, materiality in planning and performing the audit. First you have to give the highlight actually here, that give the reference to standard, that materiality in planning and perform the audit. You have to highlight that auditor should consider the relationship between the audit risk and materiality. Audit risk and materiality, and it is always what you can say a inverse relationship. So if the audit risk is high, materiality should be low. Materiality means important. See, what is important for one person may not be important for other person. That is what it is actually here. Okay, that's the thing here. So now auditor, basically there's an inverse relationship between them. So higher the audit risk, lower the materiality. Lower the materiality, higher the audit risk, or lower the audit risk, higher the materiality. These are the things you have to consider here. So essay 320, what happens here is that materiality in planning and performing the audit, that's a thing here. Okay. Now, when planning the audit, my dear soldiers, the auditor, first of all, the financial information, is it materially misstated? Is it materially misstated? Actually, that's a thing here. So whether the financial information, is it materially misstated, that you have to check. That's a thing here. So now what happens is that whether the financial information, my dear soldiers, is it materially misstated or what, that you have to check, that you need to highlight, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. So now, my dear soldiers, that's the thing here. So now, in such case, actually, is that is it materially misstated or what? That you have to check. That you need to highlight it. Actually, that's the thing here. And next one. So that is why we don't use the word misstatement. See, the 10 rupee difference is also a misstatement. But we are looking into what? Come on, material misstatement. That's a thing here. Okay. Now, what happens? You have to consider materiality while you're doing a audit sampling, while you're applying analytical procedures. So materiality has to be considered for what you can say, for using audit sampling, using analytical procedures, even ABCD. For ABCD, ABCD means what? Account balance, class of transaction, and disclosure. ABCD, I repeat again one more time. Account balance. Sir, account balance means balance sheet item. Class of transaction means P&L item. Okay. Disclosure means notes to accounts. So I have to consider the aspect of materiality for while doing an audit sampling, analytical procedures, account balances, class of transaction, and disclosure. Okay. So this is the pointer you need to highlight and understand here. It all depends upon the risk. See, are you ready to accept? Basically, ultimately, you need to ensure that the audit risk is an acceptably low level. That's the thing here. So here, as an auditor, what happens? The audit risk to be at low level. Audit risk has to be reduced, and that's the thing here. So that is why the auditor has to assess the materiality and audit risk. So he has to assess what you can say, audit materiality and the audit risk. He has to do the assessment of audit materiality and audit risk. That's the thing here. So materiality for the financial statement as a whole should be considered actually here. And also you should consider for ABCD. ABCD means account balance, class of transaction, and disclosure. Sir, you just now you told balance sheet, P&L. What is the difference between financial statement and ABCD? See, ABCD, account balance means balance sheet items. Class of transaction means P&L item. Disclosure and presentation means items and notes to accounts. So you have to consider materiality both at what you can say at the entire overall financial statement level and also at the each balance sheet item level and P&L item level also. That is what they are telling, that materiality for the financial statement as a whole and the account balance and class of transaction as a whole to be considered. That is why what they say, materiality in one situation may not be same in the materiality for other situation. Okay, it will change. For a financial statement a whole, materiality may be different. For each individual item, the materiality may be different. See, what is material? An item is said to be material if it influences it influences the user of the financial statement. If it has a influence on the economic decision making of the user of the financial statement, that item is said to be what? Come on, it is considered as the material. Okay, that's the thing here. Is everybody clear? Yes, everybody clear? If you are clear, come on, see. Hit the chat box. Come on, hit the chat box. Subramanyam is clear. Sri Ram is clear. Sri Lakshmi is clear. Anand is clear. Okay, Aishwarya is clear. Okay, fine, good, great. Let us march ahead. Let us go to the next part of the question. In the next part of the question, my dear soldiers, we have the chapter 3 again in the new syllabus, which is more relevant for both old as well as the new syllabus. It's overall it is relevant actually. That's the thing here. Now, what is this chapter 3? What are these questions which are being asked? Let us try to understand, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. Now, in this case, see, while doing an audit of ABC Private Limited on the basis of SAI, auditor comes to conclusion that use of going concern accounting is appropriate. It is appropriate So use of going concern accounting is appropriate, and that's a thing here. So now in such case actually here, but there is a material uncertainty exists. Discuss the implication for the auditor's report. You have to discuss the implication in the auditor's report actually here, about if adequate disclosure of material uncertainty is made in the financial statement, and if adequate disclosure of material uncertainty is not made in the financial statement. Suppose say adequate disclosure is made, and suppose say adequate disclosure is not made in the financial statement, how will you deal with it actually? See, this is a new type of question they have asked actually. They have not asked this question earlier. This is not a repeated question, soldiers. First of all, we have to appreciate the quality of question they have brought in, because it's more of an application based question. He is telling that, okay, going concern basis is appropriate, but there are certain material uncertainties are there. What will you do with this actually here? And suppose say this material uncertainty has been disclosed. See, for example, government is changing policy which is having a very bad impact on the what you can say on us actually. So it is having a very bad impact on us. So how will you deal with this situation actually here? So he has made a disclosure. Now there is a material uncertainty, but the disclosure is made. Now I'll give you option to you to answer actually here. Now in such case, as an auditor of a company, what type of opinion you will issue? So I'm asking about point number A. Adequate disclosure of material uncertainty has been made. I've made a disclosure. Will you give an unmodified opinion or a modified opinion? Unmodified means good opinion, and modified means bad opinion. URM. URM. The answer, let you please give answers actually. It should come from your level actually here. Come on, choose. Maximum what will happen, wrong answer will come. It's okay, no problem actually here. Okay. Just give a try actually here. Okay. Now, yes, unmodified opinion to be given. Anand, Subramaniam, Tejasri, Sri Ram, all of you are correct. Unmodified opinion to be given. Sri Lakshmi is also correct. Unmodified opinion to be given. Don't have a temptation to look at the answer. Okay, I am just trying to make you think. Okay, no problem. Maximum, okay, wrong answer. It's okay. Here we will rectify. So, if there are material uncertainty, but you have made a complete disclosure, it means you are transparent. And here you will give an unmodified opinion, and a separate heading you will give material uncertainty relating to going concern. Okay, so here what you will do, you will give a unmodified opinion plus separate heading like say material uncertainty related to going concern. Material uncertainty related to going concern, and that's the thing here. Unmodified opinion is given in SA 700. The standard is SA 700. Now, going concern topic is SA 570. So, quote SA numbers. It will impress the examiner. Oh, this guy knows the subject actually. So, you have to quote it that way. So, you have to give an additional heading material uncertainty relating to going concern. That's the thing here. Now, suppose say adequate disclosure of material uncertainty is not made in the financial statement, then in such case you have to give a qualified opinion. You have to give a what you can say, my dear soldiers, you have to give a qualified opinion or a adverse opinion to be given, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. Qualified or adverse opinion to be given. You have to give a qualified or a adverse opinion to be given. That's the thing here. And the answer, my dear soldiers, is that you have to give reason in basis for qualified opinion or basis for adverse opinion as per SA 705. See, always remember there are two types of opinion: unmodified, modified. Unmodified means good, modified means bad. Unmodified 700 and modified is 705. Now, there are what you can say, my dear soldiers, two types of. I told you that there are two types of opinion, and under modified opinion, basically, soldiers, there are three types of what you can say modified opinion. Are there three types: qualified, adverse, and disclaimer. So either you will give a qualified or an adverse opinion. Why are you not giving disclaimer? Because disclaimer is given only when there is no evidence is available here. Okay, that's the thing here. So this is the answer you have to write down. That's the thing here, and you have to mention material uncertainty that may cast what you can say significant doubt, that may cast what you can say, my dear soldiers, significant doubt. So there is a what you can say, my dear soldiers, aspect of materials uncertainty which is involved, and this material uncertainty, it may cast a significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue, entity's ability to continue as going concern, entity ability to continue as going concern, and financial statement do not disclose the matter, disclose the matter. So you have to highlight that financial statement is not disclosing the matter. Okay, that's the thing here. It's a question which is testing your application knowledge. So it's a new set of question they have asked. Beautiful question, I would highlight it, and it's a new question, it is never repeated earlier. Okay, now let us go to the next question in this chapter number 3, equally applicable to both old and new syllabus. Now, the next question is that give examples of financial events or condition that individually or collectively may cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern. So, give example, I repeat, on financial events or condition that individually or collectively may cast what you can say significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue going concern. This is a repeated question. So it's a repeated question. It's several times they have asked this question. Okay. You have to highlight what are the indicators, like say net liability or net current liability position, net liability or net current liability position, that you have to take into consideration. That's the thing here. Then next one, my dear soldiers, indication of withdrawal, withdrawal of financial support by creditors, indication of withdrawal of financial support by creditors, that's the thing here. Then adverse key financial ratios, that's the thing here. So there is an adverse key financial ratio, that's so indication of withdrawal of financial support by creditors, adverse key financial ratios, actually here these are the financial indication, that's the thing here. Then fixed term borrowings which are approaching maturity, without realistic prospects for renewal or repayment, without realistic prospects for renewal or repayment, that's the thing here. So now, my dear soldiers, that's the thing here. So indication of withdrawal of financial support by creditor, adverse key financial ratio, fixed term borrowings, my dear soldiers, which is approaching maturity, come on, without realistic prospects for what you can say, my dear soldiers, without any realistic prospects for what you can say renewal or repayment, that's the thing here. Next one, adverse key financial ratio, and that's the thing here. And negative operating cash flow, these are all what you can say the financial indicators, that's the thing, negative operating cash flow. Then adverse financial ratio, there may be adverse financial ratio. So net liability or current liability position, indication of withdrawal of financial support by creditor, adverse key financial ratios, that already I think I've written here, negative operating cash flow. Then fixed term borrowings approaching maturity without realistic prospect for renewal or repayment, all these things are financial indicator. Then non-payment to creditors, non-payment to suppliers, non-payment of dividend, these are all what you can say, they are all what you can say the financial indicators, actually that's the thing. So it falls under the purview of what you can say the financial indicator, and that's the thing here. I hope you are clear, I hope you are getting the point, my dear soldiers, as far as the financial indicators are concerned, and that's the thing here. Okay, so this is the second point actually. So giving examples of financial events or conditions that individually or collectively may cast a significant doubt on entity's ability to continue as a going concern. Two words which is very direct: going concern and financial events and condition, that way. Okay, then next question, let us move to the next question. SA 560 subsequent events deals with the auditor's responsibility relating to subsequent event in audit of financial statement. Straight away he has asked about subsequent event. Financial statement may be affected by certain events that occur after the date of financial statement. Okay. Many financial reporting frameworks specifically refer to such event. Explain those events and also define subsequent event. Very simple question is asked. Very simple. Rather, very straightforward question they have asked. But it's a new question. They have never asked this type of question. They would have straight away said that what is subsequent event? Subsequent event basically are the events which occur between DFS and DAR, date of financial statement and date of audit report. DFS is nothing but the balance sheet date. DAR is date of audit report. So subsequent event are those events which occur between the date of financial statement and date of audit report. That's the thing here. So it's a very straightforward question they have asked actually. And events which auditor becomes aware after the date of audit report. So it is an event between DFS and DAR, date of financial statement and date of audit report, and events after the date of audit report. Okay, and there are two types of events, that is adjusting event and non-adjusting event. You have to write down about these two events actually. What is adjusting event? Adjusting events are those which provide evidence that the condition existed as on the date of financial statement. For example, I have a doubt that a particular debtor may become debt may become a bad debt. I have a complete doubt that a debt may end up becoming a bad debt actually. That's the thing here. So I know that it will become a bad debt. That's the thing here. Now, in such case, what will happen, my dear soldiers? So when I say the debt is becoming a bad debt altogether, and that's the thing here. So it's an adjusting event. Adjusting event means what? It provides evidence that the condition existed as on the date of financial statement. And another event, non-adjusting event, it provides evidence that the condition arose after the date of financial statement. So any condition that is arising after the date of financial statement, that is called as what come on the non-adjusting event. It is dealing with what come on the non-adjusting event. So non-adjusting event basically it provides us an evidence that okay, the event will what you can say arise after the date of financial statement. See, for example, asset got destroyed after the balance sheet date. Okay, it could be any asset that could have been destroyed after the balance sheet date, and that's the thing here. So very simple question they have asked actually here. Rather, it's a new question, but direct question they have asked. That's the thing here. So don't get scared looking at paragraph. Okay, what they are asking actually here. That should not be the case, my dear soldiers. Okay, that's the thing here. So if they are asking this kind of questions, you have to be confident actually here. Ultimately, once you read the basic, but it's a very big basic question they have asked, according to me. Very basic question they have highlighted here, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. Okay. Now let us move forward actually. That's the thing. Auditor has a responsibility to perform audit procedure to identify what? Identify, assess, respond to ROM. Risk of material misstatement, is nothing but problem arising from the entity's failure to appropriately account for RPR and RPT and RPB. So I generally use the word RPR, related party relationship, related party transaction and related party balances. RPR, RPT, RBB. Straight away your mind should chuck towards SA 550, which talks about the related party. So moment you start reading the question, the answer should start falling there actually. That's the thing. Now, during the audit, what they say during the audit, the auditor should maintain alertness for related party information while reviewing the records and documents. Okay, yes, it's correct. He may inspect the records and documents that may provide information about related party relationships and transaction. Explain in detail with the example. As it is, you can write down the thing actually here. So this particular paragraph you can write down as it is. Okay. So he is throwing a paragraph and say you explain the example. So he is asking that what records and documents you have to check. Instead of asking you a direct question, he is asking an indirect question. That is the beauty of this question. Okay. So here understanding should be whatever I write in the flower bracket, it is purely for your understanding actually. So what is the question here? What records, documents. So what records, documents need to be checked? So what is the record, documents need to be checked for RPT, RPR, RPB? Simple. That's a question actually. So you can say life insurance policy, we will check. We will check ITR, income tax returns, we will check. We'll check the shareholders register, SHR, shareholders register actually here. Then also statement of conflict of interest of management and TCWG. TCWG means those charged with governance. These are the people who provide a strategic direction of the company. They are like directors of the company. Those charged with governance is nothing but, they are nothing but the directors of the company. Okay, that's a thing here. So here, what is asking, what is the document you will check? I will check life insurance policy. I will check income tax returns. I will check shareholders register. I will check statement of conflict of interest by management and those charged with governance. That's a thing here. I will check the contract, not in the OCB. Contract not in the OCB, not in the ordinary course of business. Not in the ordinary course of business. That's a thing. Then contract and agreement. Contract and agreement. OCB means ordinary course of business. Then contract and agreement basically with the management and TCWG. So what is the contract and agreement with them? That also you will highlight it actually here. And also invoices from professional advisor, my dear soldiers. So you also look into the invoices which are issued by the professional advisor. You also look into the internal auditor's report. So even internal auditor's report also should be considered actually. So internal auditor's report also to be taken actually. So internal auditor's report to be taken, and also any contract which are renegotiated with the related party. So one thing you should note that the possibility of fraud risk is very high when it comes to a related party transaction. It is very high. So that is why you have to be very careful with the related party transaction, and that's a thing here. Okay. Next question. Let us go to the next question. Next question, soldiers. Audit evidence. Basically, the question starts like this here. Audit evidence is influenced by its nature, source, and the circumstances under which it is obtained. Elucidate the guiding principle which shows the reliability of audit evidence. This is from the old syllabus RTP, but it is still relevant for new syllabus also, and also for old syllabus. That's why I told you some questions which are there in old syllabus RTP, yet it is relevant for new syllabus also. So it's like a combo for both of you, it's relevant. He is asking that, so what is the guiding principle for assessing the reliability of audit evidence? Assessing the reliability of audit evidence. What is what you can say, my dear soldiers, the guiding principle? That's the thing here. So guiding principle, my dear soldiers, actually for in assessing the reliability of audit evidence, what stands to be the, what you can say, the guiding principle in assessing the reliability of audit evidence? That's the thing here. So how do you deal with this actually? That's the thing here. Okay. In assessing the reliability of what you can say, the audit evidence. Now here, audit evidence is reliable if it is obtained from independent source. This is a question. Audit evidence means SA 500 you have to highlight. If you are obtaining the audit evidence from independent source, this is a repeated question. It's a repeated question. They have asked earlier also. Okay. It's not a new question.
Now, audit evidence is liable if it is obtained from independent source. Audit evidence is liable if it is in a written form than oral or visual form. Then audit evidence is reliable, my dear soldiers, if it is obtained directly by auditor, than client actually here. So audit evidence is liable if it is obtained from independent source. Audit evidence is liable if it is in a written form, than, my dear soldiers, than a oral form. Then it stands to be as a oral form, and that's a thing here. Okay. Next one, audit evidence is liable if it is obtained directly by the auditor than through the client. That's a thing here. And audit evidence is reliable, my dear soldiers, if it is a original document, than photocopy or facsimile copy. Facsimile means fax copy. Fax is now outdated thanks to WhatsApp and Google and Facebook, Instagram. It's gone. So is it a photocopy? Photocopy means Xerox copy. Original document is always reliable. Then internal audit evidence is liable if the internal control is operating effectively. Internal control means it's a policy and procedure of organization. So these are the 5 factors, guiding principle, which states that when an audit evidence stands to be reliable in nature. Okay, highlight that in your answer when you're writing. Another question from the old syllabus but still relevant for the new syllabus. Discuss the various points which auditor needs to consider in determining whether it is appropriate to use audit evidence about operating effectiveness of control obtained in previous audit. If so, length of time period that may elapse before the retesting. See, internal control testing, what we have to check? We have to check the OE of IC, operating effectiveness of internal control. And how will you check the operating effectiveness of internal control? That is test of control. See, internal control is what? It's a policy, procedure of organization. They will not change. Last year same policy, this year same policy. So what I can do is that I can use the evidence which I have obtained in the previous year audit also about the control. Every year I don't have to go retesting. See, transaction may change, control does not change us. Transaction may increase, transaction may decrease, controls will not have that kind of thing. Generally, ideally, what they say, once in 3 years, the control testing should be done. Once in 3 years. Test of control is not performed every year unless there is a change in the process. For example, one client, he shifted from Tally to SAP, then we have to test the control. Or there is a change in the personnel, then we have to retest the control. Retesting of control has to be done in that case. Actually, there's no doubt about it. That's a thing here. Okay. So now in such case, what are the things, what are the parameters to be considered? Actually, that's the thing here. What factors you will consider for retesting? First of all, effectiveness of elements of internal control. Elements, there are 5 elements of internal control. If you remember, crime, can write down crime, that is control activity, risk assessment procedure, information processing and control, monitoring, entity and the control environment. Crime. So first of all, you see the effectiveness of element of control. If these are strong, I don't require further retesting. That's the thing here. Then also the risk associated with the internal control. What is the risk associated with the internal control? So is there any risk which is involved actually? Then next one, see, it could be a manual, it could be a automated control. But see, always understand that prime enemy for internal control is the risk. Risk is a problem. Internal control is like a solution. Then effectiveness of GITC. That is general IT control. It's nothing but the general IT control. What is the effectiveness of general IT control? That's the thing. Then effectiveness of internal control and its application, So effectiveness of internal control and application. General IT control you learn in audit under automated environment. Okay, if you remember that, that's the thing here. So effectiveness of the internal control and its application, then deviation in internal control. What are the deviation in the internal control? Okay, then also continue there, actually changes in personnel. I told you people, if people will change, you may have to do the retesting of the internal control, and that's the thing here. Okay, so this is the point, my dear soldiers, that's the thing here. Also, what happened, there may be lack of changes, so I may not do any retesting, lack of changes may be there. And also I have to consider ROM, risk of material misstatement. ROM is nothing but problem. If more problem means the testing you have to do regularly, that's the thing. So there may be changes in personnel, there may be lack of changes, or there may be what you can say ROM. ROM is nothing but the risk of material misstatement. That's the thing here. Okay. Yeah. I hope till now here you are clear actually. Are you clear till now? The question number 6 actually, yes. Clear means C, 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 C. Come on. Hit the chat box actually. C, 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 C. Subramanya, Sriram, yes, Sri Lakshmi, Tejasri, Anand, clear. Sri Lakshmi is asking crime. See, crime is nothing but Sri Lakshmi. It's a component of internal control. Okay. Component of internal control, C stands for control activity. Okay. Control activity, here you, or what you do, you check the authorization of transaction, segregation of duties. Okay. This you learn in the chapter of internal control and risk assessment. C stands for control activity. Means what? Whether the transaction is properly authorized, properly recorded, there is a segregation of duty. R is risk assessment procedure. Risk assessment procedure is a type of audit procedure to identify and assess ROM. And I is information processing and control. Basically, there has to be a control over IT also. There is two types of control you learn in automated environment: general IT controls and application control. And M is monitoring of control, whether the internal control is functioning throughout the period. How do you ensure that? Through internal audit, through bank reconciliations, you find out that. Last one is E, entity and the control environment. Okay, so this is what you learn in the chapter of internal control and the risk assessment. I hope you are clear, Sri Lakshmi. Now let me move forward. Now, chapter 4 of the new syllabus, soldiers, what they are asking: significant risk often relate to significant non-routine transactions or judgmental matters. Non-routine transactions are transactions that are unusual due to either size or nature, and that therefore occur infrequently. The judgmental matters may be include development of accounting estimates for which there is a significant measurement uncertainty. That's the thing here. So what is happening is that two problems. One is non-routine transaction. Second one, where transaction where there is a judgment involved. These two are leading to what come on? Significant risk. Significant risk is a elder brother of ROM. See, risk of material misstatement means problem. Now, significant risk means critical problem. First, you write down for understanding. It is critical problem. And this critical problem arises because of two reasons, my dear soldiers. One is a non-routine transaction. And second one, transaction which involves lot of judgment. Okay, sir. Now, in the context of significant risk, explain the factors to be considered by the auditor in exercising the judgment as to which risk are significant risk. So, what are the factors which to be considered by auditor in exercising the judgment as to which risk is a significant risk? This part is a repeated question. This they have not given often. They have not given. This is the first time they are adding this paragraph. But this is a repeated question. What are the factors? So they are giving a full build up to you. Then they are throwing one simple question they are throwing towards you. What are the factors? So basically risk due to fraud. Why? it leads to significant risk of fraud. Then risk of transaction not in the normal course of business or ordinary course of business. Then risk of complex transaction. These things you have to highlight it here. Risk of fraud. These are all examples for what you can say the significant risk. Significant critical problem. It may be risk of fraud, risk of transaction not in the normal course of business or ordinary course of business, risk of what you can say the complex transaction. Okay. Then risk of accounting, regulatory developments, or AFRF changes. AFRF changes. That's the thing here. So risk of accounting, regulatory development, AFRF changes, and that's the thing here. So that is the next and the most important pointer you need to highlight and understand here. That's the thing here. So now, my dear soldiers, is that risk of fraud, risk of transaction not in the normal course of business, not in the ordinary course of business, risk of complex transaction, risk of accounting and regulatory developments, and changes in applicable financial reporting framework. All these things will come into picture, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. So there is a, what you can say, my dear soldier, there is a risk of fraud, risk of transaction not in the normal course of business and not in the ordinary course of business. That's the thing here. So risk of complex transaction, and that's the thing here. So that's the scenario, my dear soldier. So all these things you have to answer actually here. So this is a repeated question, but the first paragraph they had never added in a question, and they are giving a question to you like this. Okay. Now the second part of the question is what? Risk of material misstatement may be greater for significant non-routine transaction arising from the matters of complex calculation. Also, risk of may be greater for significant judgment. I told you that ROM or significant risk, there is two problems is that one is NRT and where there is a significant judgment which is involved. That's a thing here. So now arising from the development of accounting estimates. Accounting estimates means the provisions and contingent liability. Provisions and contingent liability arising from the matter such as accounting principles for accounting estimates may be subject to differing interpretation explained in detail. So the ROM, it arises either because of non-routine transaction or there is a significant non-ROM. Again, I told you problem, and if it is very critical, it becomes significant risk. Significant risk definition is also what? It's a risk which is what you can say, which is nothing but ROM, which is very critical in nature. That's a thing here. So now, what are the parameters you consider here? First of all, you have to look into a NRT, non-routine transaction. That's a thing here. Non-routine transaction, my dear soldiers, first, for example, say for that there will be a greater management intervention. There will be a greater management intervention for accounting treatment. For non-routine transaction, what will happen? Greater management intervention for accounting treatment. That's a thing here. There may be a greater manual intervention. There will be a greater management intervention for accounting treatment. There will also be a greater manual intervention involved actually. That's a thing here. Then there will be complex calculation. Say there can be, example could be ESOPs. Example could be like say impairment of asset. These are all non-routine in nature. That's a thing here. Okay. So now what happens for non-routine transaction? No effective internal control you can implement. Once in a year it will happen, or once in 2 years it will happen. So you don't have control over that. So that's a problem actually here. Okay. So it is not regular, like regular sale happening every day or every week. No, it is like once in a while it will happen. An abnormal transaction, but it is still related to business. That's the thing here. Okay. So non-routine transaction, what are the parameters you have to consider? First of all, greater management intervention for accounting treatment, greater manual intervention for data collection, complex calculation, and no control for non-routine transaction. Next one, when we talk about judgment, say significant judgment is involved actually, that's the thing. So see, judgment will come into picture when there is a, what you can say, a situation of, so judgment will always come into picture in case of accounting estimates. I told you accounting estimates like that, that's a thing here. For accounting estimate, that's a thing here. So significant judgment for accounting estimates are revenue recognition, so significant judgment for what come on accounting estimates are, it can be revenue recognition. See, contract may tell the turnover will be X factory. So turnover will be X factory. The contract will tell that way. That's the thing here. So the turnover, my dear soldiers, will stand to be X factory, or it could be like say CIF, cost, insurance and freight, or it could be FOB sale, CIF sale, it could be X factory sale, it could be export. So revenue may also involve lot of judgment. That's the thing here. Okay. Then also assumptions. So sometimes assumptions for future event. So any assumption which is involved for what you can say for the future event, that's the thing here. So assumptions for what come on, my dear soldiers, the future event, and that's the thing here. This is the first and the foremost point actually here. Subramaniam is asking a question whether rotation of auditor includes internal auditor. Internal auditor is not included. So internal auditor is not included, Subramaniam. It is only meant for the statutory auditor. Internal auditor are not counted for that. Okay. That's a thing here. Okay, soldiers, any other doubts are also there. You can ask me. Subramaniam, Sri Lakshmi, you asking a doubt, you're helping your class only. So good, very good actually. Now let us move forward. Let us go to the next aspect of discussion actually. That's a thing here. So let us talk about the another question actually here. Explain clearly the difference between the internal financial control and internal control over financial reporting. That's a thing here. So here what happens is that this is a internal financial control is a very broad term. Internal control over financial reporting is restricted only to financial reporting, that is accounting. That's a thing here. Now when I talk about internal financial control, IFC, internal financial control, basically it is a policy and procedure adopted by the company. It's a policy and procedure adopted by the company for ensuring the orderly and efficient conduct of business. So basically it's a policy and procedure adopted by the company for orderly conduct of the business actually, and it is adopted by the company. That's the thing here. And also prevention and detection of fraud. So there is always a prevention and detection of fraud and error. Also completeness of accounting records and timely preparation of financial information. That's a thing here. Okay. So there is always what you always look into, what come on, is there a timely preparation of financial information. See, internal financial control is also talking about business. It is also talking about financial information, control on financial statement also. So it's a broader term. Whereas internal control on financial reporting, basically you check the OE of IC, that is operating effectiveness of internal control on financial reporting. Financial reporting is another name for accounting. It's nothing but the accounting, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. Okay. So these are the parameters you have to understand actually. Now next question, what they have asked actually. Auditor reporting on internal financial control is a requirement specified in the Act. Therefore, will apply only in case of reporting on financial statement prepared under the Act. reported under section 143. Explain in detail, quoting specifically the law in the above context, covering each and every aspect. That's the thing here. So internal financial control, it is dealt in section 143.3i. This you have to mention, 143.3i of the Companies Act. It talks about what come on the internal financial control. That's the thing here. And as per law, as an auditor, you have to report that whether the, first of all, IFC exists. Does the IFC exist? And whether it is operating effectively. That's the thing. So IFC exists. And is it operating effectively? That's the thing here. Okay, so that's a scenario, whether the internal financial control is existing, my dear soldiers, and whether it is operating effectively, that you need to highlight it. That's the thing here. And also what happens is that you have rule 8. Now Rule 8 of Companies Account Rule 2014. The board report should state that whether the IFC is adequate. The board report has to state that. So there is a law, and the law talks about the adequacy of internal control. Even in the director responsibility statement under section 134, director responsibility statement, they talk about IFC. Okay, so you have section 143.3. In 143.3i, it is the auditor who will state that the internal financial controls are operating effectively. It is the auditor who has to state that. And there is a rule 8 which says that whether internal financial controls are adequate in nature. And lastly, you have director responsibility statement under section 134, where the maintenance of adequate internal financial control is the responsibility of the directors of the company. They have to comply with all laws and regulation. They need to safeguard the asset. This is how you have to highlight it actually. Okay, that's a thing here. So it's like a auditor has to report, but the responsibility is that of the management. That's a thing here. Now let us move on to the next chapter question. Next chapter, very simple, on fraud. Detection of manipulation of account with a view of presenting false state of affairs is a task requiring great tact, intelligence, because generally management personnel in higher management cadre are associated with this type of fraud. This is perpetrated in a methodical way. Perpetrated means committed. It is committed in a methodical way. Manipulation of accounts. Manipulation of accounts, basically it will present a false state of affairs. Manipulation of account is a type of fraudulent financial reporting. First you remember that. Why manipulation of account is being done? What is the reason? Why such frauds are committed? That is manipulation of account. First of all, to avoid the incidence of income tax. I want to avoid the incidence of income tax. That's the thing here. The first and the foremost thing is to avoid the incidence of income tax. That's the thing here. Then next one, also what you say, declaration of dividend. There may be declaration of dividend. That's the thing here. Declaration of dividend, my dear soldiers, for insufficient profit. So declaration of dividend for insufficient profits. So first of all, you avoid the incidence of income tax, then declaration of dividend for insufficient profit. That's the thing here. Or you can withhold declaration of dividend even though there is a sufficient profit. It's a vice versa of the previous point. Why they are do manipulation? First main thing is that income tax I want to evade. Second main thing is that I want to declare dividend for what you can say with the insufficient profit. That's the thing here. And also I want to, what you can say, my dear soldiers, withhold the declaration of dividend even though there is a adequate profit is there. Even though there is an adequate profit, I want to withhold that. That's the thing here. And also what you say for higher remuneration, more profit is declared. Some managers are told that if you make more profit, that's a thing here. So for higher remuneration, my dear soldiers, more profit is declared, and that's a thing here. So I repeat again one more time. For higher remuneration, what happens, my dear soldiers? More profit is declared. So these are the, what you can say, the pointers, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. So to avoid the incidence of income tax, then declaration of dividend, then insufficient profit, mainly for that purpose, my dear soldiers, either to withhold the dividend or for higher remuneration where you have to declare more profit, and there they do the manipulation of account. So manipulation of account, as I told you, it's a type of fraudulent financial reporting. Then next one, misappropriation of asset involves theft of entity's asset and is often perpetrated by employees relatively in small and immaterial amount. Okay, they are giving a paragraph. However, it can also involve management who are usually more able to disguise and conceal the misappropriation in ways difficult to detect. Misappropriation may be accomplished by variety of ways. Explain those particular ways. This is a repeated question from the past exam. Even the manipulation of account also was a repeated question. It's a repeated question. Okay. So he is asking what are the different ways you can do the misappropriation. What are the different scenarios you can do. So you have to use a mnemonic cups. First of all, causing to pay for goods and services not received. So causing to pay for goods and services not received, that is the first thing actually. So I repeat again one more time, causing to pay for goods and services not received, that's a thing here. Then using the asset for personal purpose. So you are using the asset for personal purpose. That's a thing. And the next one, pilferage of inventory. Then embezzling receipts. So it's a straightforward question. So there's a pilferage of inventory. There's an embezzling of receipts actually. That's a thing here. And also stealing of physical assets and intellectual property. So stealing of physical assets and intellectual property. These are the various ways they do the misappropriation of asset. Misappropriation of asset is done in these different ways. That's the thing here. Now next one, question number 7. When designing an audit sample, the auditor shall consider the purpose of audit procedures and the characteristics of the population for which the sample is drawn. Explain in detail. See, whenever I talk about designing of sample, understand one thing. It is dealing with what come on the quality of sample. It is talking about what come on, my dear soldiers, the quality of sample, and that's a thing here. So we are dealing with what come on, my dear soldiers, the quality of sample. That's a thing here. So quality means the value wise it should be a high value sample. That is what it is actually here. So is it a high value sample? That's a thing here. So first of all, my dear soldiers, you have to highlight here, audit sampling enables the auditor to obtain SAI. So you have to highlight that audit sampling, basically it is helping the auditor to obtain the SAI, my dear soldiers. That's the thing. So obtain the SAI, that's the thing here. Okay. So about what you can say, the items in the sample. Ultimately, I want to draw conclusion. Ultimately, I need to draw a conclusion on the population. I will obtain evidence. I will evaluate the evidence, but conclusion I have to draw on the population. And audit sampling, again, It is on statistical approach and non-statistical approach. See, statistical approach means what? Where you use random selection technique, where you use probability theory, where we measure sampling risk. A non-statistical approach where auditor will use his own judgment, his own experience, his own knowledge in selecting a sample. One thing you understand, in a statistical approach, we use mathematical formula. In non-statistical approach, we don't use such mathematical formula. That's the thing here. Now, so when you're designing an audit sample, auditor should consider what is the purpose of the procedure, and basically, so when he is designing the sample, so auditor should highlight that for designing the audit sample, he should consider the purpose of the audit procedures. So first of all, he has to consider the specific purpose and audit procedure to achieve that specific purpose. What is a specific purpose? My specific purpose is to validate the sales. My specific purpose is to validate the import purchases. My specific purpose is to validate the payroll. Okay. So what is the specific purpose and the audit procedure, my dear soldiers, to achieve the specific purpose, my dear soldiers? That's a thing here. So now, my dear soldiers, understand that. That's the thing here. So now, in such case, actually here, that is what you have to understand about the audit sampling. That's the thing here. Now, this is the first and the foremost pointer you need to understand. Actually, that's the thing here. So here, what you need to highlight, my dear soldiers, what you need to parameter to be considered actually is that, so you need to design here means what? Quality of sample. Remember that it's a quality design. See, there is also another word called the sample quantity of sample. Sample design, sample size. Sample size deals with the quantity of sample. Sample design is all about the quality of sample. That's a thing here. Okay, that's a thing here. So now, so you have to see that what is the purpose to be achieved and how that specific purpose is achieved. That's a thing here. So what is the nature of audit evidence? What are the deviation you have to consider, my dear soldiers? That's a thing here. So what is a deviation or misstatement in the population? Deviation will always happen to internal control, and misstatement always happens in case of the transaction. That's a thing here. Okay. So, and whatever sample you are drawing from population, that population should be complete. It has to be complete in nature. That's a thing here. So complete understanding should be there. That's a thing here. Okay. It has to be, as I told you, my dear soldiers, it will always fall in complete in nature. That's a thing here. So now suppose say the deviation or misstatement is high, then you need to increase the sample size. You should increase. That's a thing here. So sample size has to be increased, my dear soldiers. That's a thing here. So suppose say a deviation is high, then that you have to consider. That's a thing here. Okay. All these factors you have to highlight. Actually, that's a thing. So you as an auditor, you will take accounts receivable account. You will take into consideration. You will take accounts receivable. Is there a doubtful accounts in that? So high value only you will go. High value you will only highlight it. Actually, that's the thing here. Okay. So all these factors you will consider while designing the audit sample. That's the thing here. Now let us move to the next question. In considering the characteristics of the population from which the sample will be drawn, auditor may determine the stratification and value weighted selection technique is appropriate. Guide the auditor in use of stratification and value weighted sampling technique. Now this question is a continuation of designing of sample. That's the thing here. Sample design can be done in two ways. There are two ways. One is the stratification and one is the value weighted selection. So he is asking that, okay, stratification and value weighted selection, these are the two methods you can use it. That's the thing here. See, stratification means dividing the population into subpopulation. So stratification means dividing the population into subpopulation. So you are dividing the population into subpopulation. I repeat again one more time. Whenever we talk about the stratification, my dear soldiers, stratification, as I told you, you divide the population into two parts. Population is divided into what you can say subpopulation. Okay, so we use the word, it is stratified. See, there is a population which has got 10,000 transaction. What you do, you divide less than 5 lakhs, more than 5 lakhs. This division is called as stratification. And each divided part is called as strata or stratum or subpopulation. Stratification is a very good technique because what will happen, you can always, you can say, reduce the variability of item. So you can divide the population into subparts. So efficiency of testing will go up. And you divide in the base of what you can say monetary value. You will take a monetary value and divide it. So here what happens, efficiency of your testing goes up. That's the thing here. That is why stratification is done. In case of value weighted selection, what will happen, soldiers, is that here the monetary amount is used basically here. So you are using a monetary unit, my dear soldiers, that's the thing here. So sample size, sample design and items are selected based on the monetary amount. Value weighted selection means monetary amount. Sir, what is this? Example, suppose say you fix a monetary amount of 10 lakhs. What does it mean? All transaction having value of 10 lakhs will be selected. Suppose say you fix a monetary amount of 12 lakhs. What does it mean? All transaction having value of 12 lakhs will be selected. Okay. So that is all we highlight about the value weighted selection. That's the thing here. So this is they have raised all this question from what you can say from the topic of sample design. Sample design, one thing is that they have never asked question earlier, and this is the first time they are asking question on sample design. Yes, it's an important topic, but never they have asked the question on this. So you can consider this two questions which you have learned in the sampling. They are all related to what come on the sample design, and sample design is all about quality of sample, and that's the thing here. Okay, so this is the thing actually here. So now let us move forward. Actually, let us take up the next category of question. That's the thing here. So this is a new question. Please read it thoroughly. They have never asked question on sample design. You may get a question on this. That's the thing here. Now let us move forward. Now chapter 8, analytical procedures. This has been asked for the new syllabus, but they have not asked for old syllabus, but yet it is also relevant for the old syllabus. Definitely it is relevant actually. Okay. Now for the purpose of standards and auditing, the term analytical procedures means evaluation of financial information through analysis of plausible relationship among both financial and non-financial data. Explain giving examples for both. This is a very simple question, but it's a repeated question actually here. So it's a repeated question they have asked. Sample design and the steps taken for sample design, two ways: stratification, value weighted selection. New question, but this is a old question, repeated question. See, ultimately what is analytical procedure? They have given the definition in the paragraph itself, that analytical procedure is a evaluation of financial information. That's the thing here. Now analytical procedure basically it is comprising of what? Study of relationship. Study of relationship. For example, sale with accounts receivable, purchases with accounts payable. That's the thing here. So analytical procedure basically what happens, it deals with what come on the study of relationship. So there is a what you can say, my dear soldiers, there is a involvement of what you can say the study of relationship, and that's a thing here. Okay, so analytical procedures basically first and the foremost thing, my dear soldiers, involves is what? Study of relationship. That's a thing here. Okay, that is all that is involved here as far as the analytical procedures are concerned. So you always look into what come on, some study of relationships will be there as far as the analytical procedures are concerned. Study of relationship, that's the thing here. Second one, my dear soldiers, is that apart from what you can say study of relationship, there is also what you can say trend analysis, or you can say comparison. That's the thing here. So you compare the financial and non-financial data. So you comparison of current year information with the prior period, with the industry information, with the anticipated results. That's the thing here. So current year with the prior period, with the industry information, and with the anticipated result. And study of relationship, basically the gross margin percentage, gross margin percentage, that is GP ratio you look into. You also compare the financial and non-financial information. For example, you have a payroll cost to number of employees, payroll cost to what you can say number of employees, like that. So there is also study of relationship, financial and non-financial information. That's the thing here. So it's a very basic question they have asked. See, analytical procedure, either it involve you compare or do a trend analysis, you compare current year information with the prior period, with the industry information, with the budgeted information, or there is a involvement of study of relationship, and that's a thing here. Okay, that is a scenario, my dear soldiers. Let us go to the next question. Analysis by computation of ratio includes study of relationship between financial statement amount, state commonly used ratio, GP ratio, then liquidity ratio, okay, then leverage ratio, like that. So liquidity ratio, profitability ratio, GP ratio, NP ratio, current ratio, acid test ratio, like that. So also turnover ratio, inventory turnover ratio, like that. So several ratios are there. It's a very straightforward question, but first time they are asking this type of question. So you have to be thorough, clear with it. Sometimes no students will read only question answer. So it's a first time they are asking. So be careful, they may ask you.
Subscribe to LearnCap and hit the bell icon to get notified.